Welcome class. In this video we will be discussing quadratic functions and how to find various features of those quadratic functions. So you notice I already have a quadratic function up on the screen, 4x squared minus 2x plus 1, and first and foremost the first thing I want to find is the vertex. So to find the vertex, you can either complete the square to put it in vertex form, or you can use the formula. Negative b over 2a gives you the x coordinate, and f of negative b over 2a gives you the y coordinate. So that one is definitely going to be easier to do if you know how to use the formula. So let's make sure we note what my a, b, and c are. 4 is my a, negative 2 is my b, and 1 is my c. So negative b over 2a is going to be a positive 2 over 2 times 4. And then we're going to have f of positive 2 over 2 times 4. Okay, so now 2 divided by 2 over 4, that's 2 divided by 8, which is 1/4. And then we need to find f of 1/4. And that will take plugging it in. So that's going to be 4 times 1/4 squared minus 2 times 1/4 plus 1. 1/4 times 1/4 is 1/16. Times that by 4 will give us 4/16, or just 1/4. And then 2 times 1/4 is 1/2. And then you have to get common denominators, so 1/4 minus 1/2 is negative 1/4. And then negative 1/4 plus 1 is 3/4. So my vertex is at 1/4, comma 3/4. So this is where my vertex is at. Okay, so now if I wanted to find the x and y intercepts, to find the x-intercepts, I would have to use the quadratic formula. So for 4x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. So I set my y to be 0, and now we have to use the quadratic formula. And if you do that, you're going to get 2 plus or minus square root of 4 minus 4 times 4 times 1 all over 2 times 4. And if we notice in here, I have 4 minus 16. So I have 4 minus 16, which is negative 12. So this right here is going to be the square root of negative 12. So this is going to be imaginary. So I'm actually not going to have any x-intercepts. So my x-intercepts are going to be none. And my y-intercept is going to be y equals c. So c is going to be my y-intercept. So that's going to be y equals 1 for my y-intercept. Okay. So now if I want to figure out if it's a minimum or a maximum, so to do that, let me section off the blank part of the board that's still left. So if I want to figure out if this is a minimum or a maximum, we want to look at my a. So my a is 4, which is positive. So if I have a positive value for a, then I know I'm going to have a minimum. And the minimum is going to be the y value of my vertex. So the y value of my vertex is 3/4. So I know that the minimum of my parabola is going to be 3/4. Now if I want to figure out my domain and range, the domain is always going to be negative infinity to infinity. Okay. And then my range, This is an upward facing parabola, so an upward facing parabola, does something like this. So I know that my range is going to start at my minimum. So my minimum is at 3/4, and it's going to go all the way to infinity. So this is a bracket, and then this is a parentheses. Okay, so there's my domain and range. And now if I want to figure out this in vertex form, you could complete the square. So you can refer back to previous video on how to complete the square, because completing the square will get you the vertex form. Or you can use the formula, and the formula for it is f of x equals a times x plus b over 2a squared plus f of negative b over 2a. So this is just the x coordinate of my vertex, but it's the opposite of it. Okay, so I have negative b over 2a here. I need to get positive b over 2a. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and fill in my a. My a is 4. And then I need the opposite of my negative b over 2a, so that number is 1/4, so the opposite of it is minus 1/4. And then f of negative b over 2a is just the y coordinate of my vertex, so that's 3/4. So this is your parabola in vertex form. Okay, and finally, I want to graph this parabola. So to graph this parabola, we're going to draw a coordinate plane. And of course, this is not nearly exact. It would be exact if I had a grid, which I probably should have put in here, but it's okay. So now my vertex is at 1/4, 3/4, which is about here, somewhere right about there. And I know my y-intercept is at 1. And I know that I can get a mirror image of this point. I don't have any x-intercepts, but I do know that I can get a mirror image of my y-intercept by reflecting it over the vertex. So my vertex is 1/4 away, so I can go 1/4 in the other direction and put a dot, basically at 1/2, a little bit after 1/2. And then there's my parabola. So hopefully this helps you some. Hopefully this gives you an idea of this section. It's not that bad as long as you can keep up with all of the information.